Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of DTV. I'm really excited to have here Sever, CEO of Applitools, to share a little bit of his thoughts about digital transformation and how you can avoid the pitfalls and capitalize on the opportunity. Gil, welcome. Thanks for coming to do this with us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about Applitools. I mean, how are you trying to help people deliver on digital transformation?
So we are trying to automate the last part in digital transformation that wasn't being able to be automated without Applitools, which is the visual analysis and validation of the computer screens that without Applitools can only be done manually. So we actually built a visual AI algorithm that mimics the human eye and brain that actually analyzes screenshots the way a human being would analyze them and identify the problems and issues that interfere with a human using an application and so on.
Well, one of the big challenges is people have an idea about what kind of a customer experience they're going to give. And then the challenge in life so often is, does what your company or your technology deliver, does it actually meet what you expected it to deliver? Is that what you're trying to deliver to the customer?
Exactly. We're trying to make sure that the customer gets exactly what the person that developed the application, the software, meant that person to see. And it's becoming more complex because people today use multiple of different devices, different browsers, different screen sizes, and you need to make sure that your customers that can use any device that they are using will actually have perfect experience on their device.
And can you give us an example of like a really interesting digital transformation that you were part of that Applitools helped enable?
Financial institutions turn more and more into online banking. And you need to make sure that all the flow would be very simple, very easy, everything would be very clear to the user, so you can actually measure and record the screenshots that your customer is seeing and compare it versus the business KPIs like conversion rates, how long a transition or transaction took him to do and so on, how many transactions have completed successfully and so on. And then you can correlate the business factors with the technology, the UI version that was used, and make sure to deploy the best user interface to drive the business as best as you can.
Well, that's one of the big challenges with digital transformation is it's not just the technology, it's the business, and how do you keep the two of those tied together? And it sounds like that's one of the key things that you're doing.
Exactly. So yeah, we tie them together. That's one of the capabilities. We also help the people that develop the technology to be able to test that before they deploy to the customer. So not let the customer test the application, so they can know in advance that what they did was right and would work well with the customer. That's one thing. And in addition, they can continue to monitor that after it's in production. So because in digital transformation era, things are very dynamic. Content is changing, microservices are changing, browsers and devices are updated every day, and you need to make sure that the excellent experience that your application provided when it was released to the market actually continues with a new device, with a new version of browser and so on.
Are there any good examples of pitfalls that you've seen people run into with digital transformation that you'd say, look, when you start down this journey, this is something you really need to think about because you don't want it to bite you?
Sometimes you make the design and everything is perfect, but you didn't think that you'll be so successful that the load would be so great that CSS files won't load on time and the customer would get a crappy experience. So we've seen that pitfall happen. The other thing is responsive web design. You test and check your application on certain screen sizes, and then on a different screen size, things are cut out, not seen, cannot be read, and so on. So these are other things that happen. Using different languages. You created a website, in English it looks great, you translate everything to German, now the words are longer, suddenly things start to get cut, and so on. So all these things are examples that we see in the market and that can be prevented if you test it in the right way and you're using Applitools and so on. One of the key things in digital transformation is that you continuously need to measure the KPIs, you need to do continuous testing of everything because things are changing. We work with a very large publisher that has tens of different publications online.
Right.
And, he tested things and everything were okay, but suddenly when the headline of an article was too long, it wrapped around and covered the article body. So these are all the things you need to keep tracking your application 24/7, because even things that work perfectly now can break 10 minutes from now because of so many reasons that are beyond your control.
Well, that's the other thing is it used to be, you had certain hours you were open. This business is open 9 to 5, and, we'll work and we'll update things when the business is closed. And now I think everyone's business is 7 by 24
exactly.
and worldwide and every language.
7-Eleven now is not...
Yeah. And so in that kind of a world, you've got to be automated. You can't count on manual. You can't count on Windows. It has to be ongoing and everywhere.
It has to be ongoing, and it has to be automated, because the other thing is you measure yourself, and sometimes, in a matter of hours, you understand this campaign is not going well, so you want to change it. So you end up making those changes, unlike like in a physical store that you, may change the window every month. Here you can change the application every hour, few times a day, and you need to validate every change that you make. At the same time, you need to keep that pace, and you need to validate on all the different devices, browsers. There's such a big matrix that it can only be done, in an automated way. And again, the visual aspects had no other way to be tested automatically except for our visual AI. The other thing that the AI that's added to the visual analysis adds is that it improves with time. So you can't just, in traditional algorithms, and I'm talking general about AI, traditional algorithms, you wrote an algorithm and it continued, it repeated itself until somebody wrote a different algorithm or updated the algorithm. With AI, what happens is you can go faster to the market. You don't have to be 100% perfect, but you need the testing to detect that and to improve and find and improve the testing mechanism without you touching it. And that's what the AI part adds to this game. So actually, with time, the quality of your application improves, and you don't have to do nothing. It's the internal algorithm that learns and modifies itself and gives you better results.
So are there, in terms of business impact for customers, what are some examples of how the customer is seeing the business impact? Is it ability to get new features out faster? Is it the ability to use that feedback on the KPIs to change their campaigns? And have they measured the financial impact or the business impact of that capability?
Yeah, so they have, the simplest impact is like how much time do you save on the release.
Right.
If you're releasing every 7 days instead of like 12 days, then you've saved, maybe 40% of the overall spend on developers, QA teams, and so on. And that's one impact which is very easy to measure. The other impact that we see is how much does a bug worth? If the add to cart button is cut out of your application, then, and for 7 hours, people cannot add to cart on a certain iPhone model, how much does it cost the business? So it has a real cost aspect, but it also how it affects churn, customer satisfaction, and so on. And these are bigger effects, because in a competitive market, you have multiple applications, banking applications, transportation applications. If something don't work, switching to a competitor is easy.
It's just one finger.
And again, once you do that, coming back, can happen like never, or maybe like 2 or 3 months later on. So you're losing a lot of. So it's critical in the era of digital transformation to provide best performance all the time. Otherwise, you'll also lose to your competitor. Now, a third part that we are now seeing is compliance. Mm-hmm. We see financial institutions using us to be able to prove that when a customer did a financial transaction, the fine print was apparent to him, even when he used a small device with operating system from 2 years ago and so on. Now they're able to prove it. Or if somebody like pharmaceutical companies use it, to be able to prove to the FDA the drug warnings were apparent in German, in English, in Japanese, to customers that actually bought or viewed the drug through the website and so on. So it has multiple effects. It can be fines of millions of dollars if you don't comply with regulations. It can be loss of business and customers. And it also can be, just payrolls that you save. And of course, delivering faster. That also has a value. If you can make changes in 5 days instead of like 2 weeks, your business is more agile and you can adapt it much faster to the market and different market conditions. So it's a really big variety of areas where you help the customers.
Well, it's interesting. Once you get a certain magnitude of change, a quantitative impact becomes not just 40%, but you've now doubled your speed. And that changes your competitive positioning because now you can react to market changes in a way that a competitor that doesn't have the capabilities can't.
Yeah, and he's left behind, and you're moving ahead. That's true.
And the other thing that struck me when you were talking about the regulatory aspects is it used to be that kind of technology was an adjunct. It was useful, but it was kind of off to the side. But now these digital experiences are core to the entire customer journey. And as a result, and they're also going across all these different devices. So you've both kind of this explosion of different platforms, and it's no longer a sideshow. It is the main show for your customer interaction.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the UI today is the main interface with customers. And even when people are talking about voice activation, it has been proven that even if you activate a certain application or a search with voice, seeing the results visually is a much more efficient way. So that will stay with us and will continue to be the main interface to customers. That's why it's so important.
What are you most excited about as you're looking, you're talking to different customers as you kind of look forward with digital transformation? What gets you the most excited about what's happening?
So I'm most excited about the fact that I'm seeing that our technology can contribute in so many different market segments. And eventually, it becomes clear to me that every vendor that develops software, either as a software vendor or a business that has gone digital, would need that sort of visual validation, testing, and so on in his business. So it's actually going to impact, all the software in the world. That's, what keeps me most excited.
Well, it used to be the world was so text, and now text is interesting, but you've got all these dynamic environments. And then with your customers, when you talk to the customers, what do they think? Where are they trying to go with digital transformation? Is it about increased revenue? Is it about velocity of responding to the market? Is it about decreasing costs for their testing? And who do you typically talk to at the customer?
So, when we started, we were talking mostly with technical people in the software developers, test automation engineers, and so on. As we see the benefit, we're actually starting talking to more business functions at C-level. It can be a CIO, but it can also be, in many cases, VP of Digital Transformation, VP of Marketing, that people that really get the most impact of the visual interfaces. And that's where we see the growth. Now, where I see customers going, so it's becoming more and more crazy. Looking at websites like commercial websites and so on, where you have retail websites. You have so many different items that are changing all the time. They are so dynamic that it's really become a challenge. And if you have suddenly a discount or a special offer, you need to make sure that you know to handle these changes not as a bug, but as things that can happen. And now you're starting to deal with video and with gaming. And virtual reality, augmented reality, these are all the challenges that we are going to face in the coming years. It's becoming more and more apparent that with digital transformation, the business side is very much dependent on the technology and the application delivery cycle, quality, timing, whatever. So,
So any last comments you'd want to go and make to the audience in terms of things they should be thinking about or problems and opportunities that you see going forward with digital transformation? Kind of any parting thoughts?
I think, as customers, you probably deserve to get perfect digital experience where you're using digital applications. And I really hope that, with AI visual testing and monitoring, you'll be able to get that great experience anytime on all the devices that you're using.
Yeah, we've been impressed with the work we've done with Applitools and appreciate the chance to partner with you to deliver great digital transformation for our joint customers. And thank you for sharing with the DTV audience.
Yeah, we're also enjoying our cooperation, and it was great speaking about all these things together.
Thank you for joining us for another great episode of DTV. If you are passionate about digital transformation and would like a chance to also be broadcast, please email us at dtv@infostretch.com. We look forward to having you and look forward to you continuing to view our great series of programs. Thank you very much.